Hello and welcome to Community Thinkers, a broadcast mini-series of the Summit Hill Association. Thanks for joining us. In this series, we hear from one of St. Paul's most thoughtful people about issues that matter to our neighbors here in Summit Hill and in St. Paul as a whole. I'm Sherry Johnson. I'm a process guide, inclusion trainer, and complexity coach. I'm also a board member here at Summit Hill Association.
And I'm Monica Haas. I'm the executive director of the Summit Hill Association. I'm your go-to gal for information in Summit Hill. What is this series about? We're here hosting this series to engage our community as we renew our neighborhood plan. We're finding that the more we learn about planning, sustainability, racial equity, and economic development, the more we realize we have to learn.
Yes, and this show is for you. So after I get things started with our guests today, we're going to turn to the chat where Monica will share your questions with our guests. So before we learn from today's community thinkers, we invite you to comment and ask questions in the thread below. And we'd love to know just what brought you here today as well. So the community thinkers we've asked to join us today are Joe Spencer and Emma Burns, the president and project manager of the St. Paul Downtown Alliance. Now, this show is a little bit different from our previous shows. It's aimed primarily at our small business and commercial property owner community. You see, business improvement districts are something we discovered way back when I served as co-chair for the Grand Avenue Business Task Force. And they're gaining steam around the country as a way that businesses have banded together to build local power and bring streetscape amenities in line with their overhead costs. So we'll talk today about how downtown businesses are leveraging this tool. Welcome, Emma and Joe.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So the first question we love to ask our guests is just tell us about your personal histories with Summit Hill or Grand Avenue or neighborhoods like it.
Emma, you want to go first?
Sure. I am a lifelong St. Paul resident. It feels like I've lived a couple different places around St. Paul. I grew up in McAllister Groveland. I attended St. Kate's for my freshman year of college, so stayed pretty close. I transferred to the U and lived in Midway for about 5 or 6 years, and I have lived in Summit Hill for the last about 5 years. I've worked with Joe at the Downtown Alliance since 2018, and since joining the Alliance, I have come to know more than I ever thought possible about downtown and urban planning and design and business improvement districts.
Thanks. Joe, how about you?
And so I too was born in St. Paul, although I have to confess I actually grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, but came back to St. Paul. Actually, I graduated on a Friday, I turned 18 on a Saturday, and I moved to St. Paul on a Monday. And I got a job. My first job was at the Heartthrob Cafe in downtown St. Paul, and I have more or less kind of worked in or around downtown my entire career. I ran a district council for a while. I ran the West Side Citizens Organization in the early aughts. I had the honor of serving as Director of Arts and Culture for Mayor Coleman for 12 years. And I also have been an artist working in a professional dance company and performing for some years in there as well. But really, since the time I was at Wesco, I really fell in love with building community and did that in the mayor's office and when I worked for the city. And really, I think this work at the Downtown Alliance is an extension of that. I'm passionate about urban places. I'm a deep St. Paul lover. I actually don't live in downtown. I live in the St. Anthony Park neighborhood in St. Paul. But I'm a lifer and I love it here.
Awesome. So we brought you on here to talk about business improvement districts. What is a business improvement district for those who do not know?
Sure. Would this be a good time to go to the slides?
Yeah, sure. Drop me off, Monica. Let's do this. I think we're starting with Joe.
Ooh, there we go.
All right. So actually, I can't see the slides. Maybe that's okay. I think I know what's on them. So I'll just start by saying a business improvement district is a self-managed, self-imposed assessment district that businesses put together. So it's in the state legal language, it's called a special services district. It requires a supermajority of support from the commercial property owners, and it is an opportunity for those businesses, either the tenants or the property owners, who see an opportunity or a need that can't be met, wouldn't ordinarily be met by city services, to organize and impose this additional fee on themselves so they can deliver those heightened or additional services. So one of the mottos you typically see is that these districts, which are their own independent organizations, they can be membership organizations like a 501c6, or it could be just a traditional charitable nonprofit as a 501c3. But in any case, these are organizations that are by business, for business, and they're run like a business. And so we did a fair amount of research, and not knowing what's on the slides, let's just go to the next, and I'll just kind of keep talking over them. Oh, look, I can see it a little bit. Anyway, we did, when we started the Downtown Alliance, one of our charges was to look at the viability of a special services district or a downtown improvement district. And we looked at them around the country, and there's over 1,000 of them throughout the US and Canada. Any downtown you've been to, and in any city really, likely has a downtown improvement district or a special services district or a business improvement district, a business improvement area. They're all different words for the same thing. And what we found is that they all really look the same. I mean, not identical, but the core features are very similar across them. And that is a heavy emphasis on a safe and clean program. And often you'll see a kind of a greening or landscaping program. So we tried our best to learn from all of those districts around the country, including in Minneapolis, the downtown improvement district there, and kind of take the best parts of each one. We were really lucky in that there's an organization called the International Downtown Association where we could go, and not all of the members there are from downtown. Some are from Main Street programs. But anyway, we got to learn from kind of best practices and kind of the coolest, most exciting things happening around the country and around Canada with BIA's bids, whatever, the business improvement districts. So I think I'll turn it back to Emma to talk a little bit more about our work with the districts.
Thanks, Joe. So as Joe mentioned, the Downtown Alliance spent a long time researching what other improvement districts around the country were doing. And in the summer of 2019, after doing about a year's worth of feasibility research, we decided the best way to demonstrate what an improvement district in downtown St. Paul could look like would be to do a pilot program. So we spent 3 months with a street team of ambassadors out in 2 core areas in downtown that were focused on safety, cleanliness, and hospitality. And so I'll share that in those 3 months, the ambassadors, and I apologize, I'm looking this way at my slides, provided 273 escort assistants, 1,717 hospitality assists, and that's things like offering directions, chatting with visitors, just making sure people know their way around, provided program information about what the pilot program was doing to 177 people, and made contact with 151 businesses in 90 days in just 2 small areas in downtown. At the same time, they removed 547 instances of graffiti. An interesting note about that was 495 of those were in the first 90 days. There's a theory that the faster you remove graffiti, the less likely it is to return, which is something that we really saw, as over the next 60 days, they only had about 50 or so instances to remove. They scrubbed and cleaned 382 garbage cans. They removed 144 block faces of weeds around tree grates and between sidewalk cracks. Using a power washer, they removed 5,300 gum spots from the sidewalks, and they were able to collect 84 bags of litter and trash. In our research, we also found, as Joe mentioned, that bids can be formed in lots of different sizes. They can look a lot of different ways. Downtown Minneapolis is one example of a very large improvement district that covers about 120 blocks. Southern California takes a different approach where they have many small adjacent improvement districts, some covering long linear stretches, which is similar to the Grand Avenue commercial district, others more neighborhood approaches, and others still have smaller adjacent districts in the same area. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing there. One important, interesting factoid that I'm not sure either of us have mentioned yet, that prior to this January, St. Paul was the only city without an improvement district of the top 100 largest cities in the country. So an improvement district is something that has been long sought in St. Paul, and a lot of people have been interested in, but it wasn't until this year that we got it done.
Thank you. There was a request in the chat for us to share some of those slides. So I think there's a way to link to that. We will figure it out with our guests. Sorry, everybody, we couldn't make it work, but thank you. That was a great explanation. That was totally auditory. Way to go. So,
once we get the slides linked, you'll love them.
Thank you. Sorry. Always test, everybody. Always test. So what are pressing issues facing neighborhood commercial districts right now, and how might BID address some of those challenges?
Go ahead, Emma.
Take it away, Joe.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, I think, again, the thing you see most commonly is an interest in improving safety outcomes and perceptions. And that's like I would say that's the most tactical thing. I would say the overarching, goal is really to more people into the district, more businesses into the district, increase property values. I mean, it's not a. I often remind people this isn't a kind of civic gesture of goodwill. This is a strategic investment to improve business outcomes. And so whatever strategies, sort of the immediate business community thinks would improve their businesses are the things that they typically focus on. So again, not surprisingly, a lot of times that's about, the basics, taking care of the basics and taking that level of polish up to a new level, right? So we're only ever going to get a certain amount of those services from the city. And so a lot of times it's saying like, look, we can do this and provide this at a much higher level. And so having that continuous presence of safety ambassadors or cleaning ambassadors to make sure that, your tolerance for graffiti in your district might be 20 minutes, right? We don't want to see any graffiti last longer than, I mean, I'm exaggerating, I think a little bit, but like literally, I think you would say 12 hours. We want to have, there should be no piece of graffiti in our district that is up for more than 12 hours before it is removed. We want to, upgrade the sort of the finishes on our street furniture or those kinds of things. We want to have a higher grade of plantings, or often it's marketing efforts. We want to run event marketing that looks like these kinds of programs. In downtown St. Paul, we're really just focusing on improving the safe and clean features in downtown. We think that is really important. We sort of set the stage and set the table for our businesses to be successful. When you come down, you have a great, comfortable experience. If you're trying to figure out where your destination is, there's a friendly face to ask, and that the street is kind of animated with again, these sort of friendly helpers, as well as a dynamic kind of presence that makes you feel like, for sure we're seeing this radio on that person's shoulder. They've got an official uniform on. They're making me feel like this is a welcome and safe and friendly space. Emma, what would you say?
I would also just add on to that there's more than 1,000 improvement districts around the country. And while Joe and I went into this work thinking that downtown St. Paul was unique in all of our problems. We quickly learned that we are not. That downtowns and commercial districts around the country and around North America are facing really similar challenges, and that this community of downtowns are really willing to share best practices and their experiences for how to tackle those sort of ubiquitous issues. But at the same time, there is no right or wrong way to address the concerns of a specific commercial district. And so the way that these districts are formed is the property owners and the commercial business owners decide what they want to fix and how they want to fix it and how much they want to spend fixing it. And so it's kind of up to them to look at their own neighborhood and look at their own business community and address their own challenges. So I think it's common to see, like Joe said, attracting new tenants, increasing property values, improving safety perceptions and outcomes as kind of a through line for all of these programs, but there's a million different ways to tackle them.
Gotcha. And on the flip side, what are BIDs unable to do in your experience?
Well, it's again, it's important to remember these are by business for business, and so occasionally, I think people from outside that community just see them as an opportunity to create free money, which of course they're not, right? Like it's not a magic. There's nothing magical about it. It's really just a mechanism by which people can pool their resources and use those resources to tackle some shared opportunities or challenges. And so I guess they're a really, really great tool. It's a great mechanism, but it doesn't create something from nothing. It's just a mechanism by which people can work together to improve their business district.
Gotcha. What role might district councils have? I mean, you say this is by businesses for businesses, so I've been really careful to be like not pushing this, right? It's not coming from us. But what role might district councils have in creating conditions for commercial vitality, and maybe making room if businesses wanted to do something like this, particularly when it comes to a neighborhood plan or an overlay district?
I was at the meeting last night. I thought it was a great meeting from the Summit Hill Association talking specifically about the overlay district on East Grand Avenue. And I think what's interesting in my experience working downtown but living along Grand Avenue is the ways that our neighborhoods and our downtown are similar and different. And the mission of the Downtown Alliance is to drive vitality into downtown. And one of the things that we're finding is that to support the retail amenities that everyone in downtown wants is that we need to have a thriving residential community to support them. We really need to round out the sort of 24/7 nature of the downtown community. And I don't think, without suggesting that Grand Avenue turn into downtown, I don't know that we have that increased density or that residential density to support all of the retail that we have on Grand Avenue right now. And so I think it's something to consider is how can neighborhoods support adding more residents, which really just equates to adding more customers.
And this is a question we ask all of our guests. If you could, it's a version of it. If you could snap your fingers and have your wish be granted, what do you wish everyone understood about business improvement districts?
I think again, it's it's up to the people. Again, it's just a mechanism to pool your resources to tackle the things that you think are most important. And it's just that, and it really the law requires a supermajority, and so I think ours passed. We had objections from people that represent less than 5% of the district of the prop, and it's just the property owners too who sort of matter in that establishing a district per the state law. So I guess the thing of it is that if I wanted people to know one thing, I again, it is a great tool. It's a great tool for businesses and business districts to help make their businesses more profitable and improve business outcomes. The city still needs to do the city's job. The state still needs to do the state's job. And I think to some extent, there's a certain amount of advocacy that goes along with that too. Like, hey, we're willing to do this, but you city or county or whatever public entity, you also need to step up and do your job. Otherwise, this whole thing essentially collapses on itself. So that's what I would say. I see a question: does the renter businesses get any votes? The state law is set up so that it's really determined by the property owner. And so certainly what we have found, and I think other districts have found, is that if the tenant businesses are supportive and willing to pay it, then the property owners will generally be more inclined to support it. And if not, then they're not. So that I think is also important.
Thanks. So Monica is going to come back on and share with us what people are asking in chat. We've got a red hot chat box today. Monica, come on in. What are you seeing?
Hi there. Mary would like to know, was Uptown considered an improvement district because it has not worked well for the Lake Hennepin area?
I don't believe it is. I saw that question pop in and I did a quick search and I don't believe, I know there's a business association in Uptown, but I don't believe there is a special services district or business improvement district in Uptown. I know that Minneapolis does have a few special services districts outside of downtown, but my understanding is those are primarily set up to fund some specific capital projects. And so they're very limited in their scope.
Great. Abigail would like to know, how much do bids tend to cost businesses in a year? And what have they need used for in a smaller shopping corridors rather than downtowns?
So in terms of how much they cost a business per year, it's entirely up to the businesses that come together. The role of the Downtown Alliance initially in establishing the Downtown Improvement District was sort of I thought of it as sort of a stewardship role. Like, we were charged with studying the feasibility and then gauging interest. Like, it was not set in stone that when the Downtown Alliance was formed in 2018, that the outcome would be an improvement district. So we spent a long time researching what other programs districts used and how much they spent on those programs. And they can vary dramatically. There are successful programs that have an annual budget of $300,000. And there are successful programs that have annual budgets upwards of $10 to $15 million. So the way that we approached establishing the downtown budget was to go to the property owners that were interested, ask them what kind of programs they would like to see, what kind of outcomes they would like to see, and sort of work backwards from there to determine how much those would cost and how much they would want to pay for them. So I think there is a sweet spot to find what you want to achieve, how much it's going to cost, and how much you're willing to pay for it. And in terms of the size and scope of different districts, again, it can vary dramatically. As Joe said, there are small special service districts around Minnesota that are sort of organized around accomplishing a capital project or one really small project or goal, all the way up to the Minneapolis Improvements District, which has, I think, an $8 million budget. So
now, when you say capital projects, I just want to check in. I'm assuming that might be something like improving or widening sidewalks or adding brick or something like that. So it's not just trash cans, it's other things like that. Is that right?
Yep, it can be. I think there are also projects specifically oriented towards improving parking facilities. Joe, correct me if I'm wrong about that, but.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it could be it could be a reconstruction of your public realm. It could even be, I mean, if you wanted to create a central plaza or improve a certain central plaza, that would be allowable. Yeah, shared parking facility certainly would be. I mean, it's really for the business side, the special services district, which is for commercial properties. It's really up to the property owners to decide what and how much. Again, if you're looking for like what is typical outside of those capital improvements, I think you might just see a small team of one or two, or you might see a shared marketing campaign where you're bringing in a professional marketing company to market your business district. It certainly does include occasionally having those sort of street ambassadors that are out just kind of walking a beat to provide some additional safe and clean services as well.
Businesses told us about wayfinding. I promise we'll get to the chat. Businesses told us about wayfinding and doing some things around maybe public art, public space, snow shoveling. I mean, all of those would sort of fall into what their current BIDs are currently doing, I would assume, too?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Monica, go for it. What else are we seeing in chat?
Renee would like to know, how is downtown coping with empty offices and empty store/food courts?
So we, like all downtowns, 2020 was a rough year. We are missing our workers and missing our visitors. Downtown St. Paul typically has about 55,000 workers and upwards of 8 to 10 million visitors each year. And the pandemic has really meant that we have maybe 5,000 workers and no visitors. We do, however, continue to have our residential population, which, by the way, has doubled over the last 10 years. So there's been a lot of growth, and there continues to be a lot of construction in downtown. So we're excited to see that residential population grow and for that density for our downtown to grow. But we have a pretty extensive set of strategies we've raised. And I should point out, we have two separate organizations. We have the Downtown Alliance, which is a nonprofit organization. And then we have the Downtown Improvement District, which is limited in scope and really just uses those funds. Again, kind of we act at the behest of those property owners and try to help them organize the services that they wanted. But at the Alliance, we're also able to seek grants and raise money that way. And so we've raised, our goal is to raise $2 million. I think we'll hit that. We're about 3/4 of the way there now. We're going to roll out more safe and clean ambassadors. We're going to put together and support lots of partners with events and activities. So our goal is over the course of the summer have upwards of 300 events that will help bring people downtown and animate our public spaces. And we're going to run a marketing campaign as well, just to remind people about everything that's special about downtown and encourage people to come on back. It's going to be hard because we know we're probably a ways off yet from having all of those workers return, and our visitor destinations are slow to ramp up due to restrictions and concerns of their patrons. So we're a ways yet away from reaching our kind of full capacity. And we have been tracking the businesses that have sort of been able to survive the pandemic. And we've got a great kind of compilation of all those on our website. Interestingly, what we found is despite all of the pain that's out there, we've only seen just about 10% of our storefront businesses have closed permanently. So that's certainly something we'll try to get those spaces to bounce back and add more to it. We will be, we do a fair amount of economic development outreach, and we'll try to recruit more businesses to those spaces. But I would say fundamentally what we want to do is set the table so that downtown is a good place people want to open their business in the first place, and let the market kind of respond to those favorable conditions.
I would just add to that. You asked, how is downtown coping? We are coping, but we miss everybody. I've been coming to the office since June, and I miss having people around, and this is coming from an introvert. So if you are someone watching right now that's working from home in Summit Hill but normally comes to the office, we are very excited to have you back.
It's happening. Monica, what else do we have in chat?
Okay. Dave said, per attached report, Minnesota commercial businesses look to be taxed excessively and more than any other state in the country. St. Paul Downtown Alliance may need time to review the article, but it seems like a tax improvement to bring us in line with other states could improve health of our businesses and promote additional business.
We'll definitely take a look. Thanks.
Okay, and I think you answered the question that Abigail said about renter business. Okay. What upfront costs were invested to do the study of feasibility, and where did that seed money come from?
Great question. Go ahead.
We applied for and received a grant from the Knight Foundation, which is a heavily invested community partner in downtown St. Paul. That was a $100,000 grant that we received to do the pilot program. We received some funding from the Cultural Star program through the city of St. Paul as well to do some arts activation that was in addition to those Safe and Clean ambassadors and some other philanthropic partners.
Great, thank you. How do you make sure your safety ambassadors don't make people of color feel unwelcome?
That's a really important question, and thanks for asking. And again, as we talk to our colleagues around the country, that's a priority for all of us, because downtown, the thing that makes downtown special is that we're a place where you'll be around a wide variety of people that more than likely are strangers and not like you, and that's what makes it a special place. It's important to note that our ambassadors are out there really to create that welcoming presence. And so they're not in the enforcement business. They're out kind of taking care of the space and out to be that kind of friendly presence. So we don't have them, again, they're not police, they're not enforcement business. If they see illegal activity, they will they're closely connected to and coordinated with the police, but they're really there to be a welcoming presence. And typically what you see is if it's really about the behaviors. If you're seeing people in, when a space is populated and dynamic, and there's a welcoming ambassador around, the sort of negative behaviors, certainly criminal behaviors, tend to not pop up in those areas.
And I would add too, as someone who comes from a customer service background, I think it's really important that generally the ambassadors are also from customer service. They are hired for their customer service skills, not, as Joe was saying, not for any enforcement skills, not for any security backgrounds, but they're people who are naturally outgoing and friendly. And it's really cool to watch them work.
Great, thanks. Jane says, I'm with the Highland Business Association, and with the Highland Bridge development coming online, would it make sense to look at something like a BID for the Highland Park area?
I mean, absolutely. Again, if there are things, James, that your businesses, your neighboring businesses, opportunities or challenges that you want to address, and you could do this through a business association too. So you could do it through HBA. Have a conversation about maybe this is a way to essentially, it's a mechanism to create more reliable funds, so that you can have programming that isn't sort of subject to dramatic swings in revenue. It normalizes that revenue for you so that you can make a more long-term commitment to a certain level of service or a certain program that you as businesses want to implement.
Great, thank you. What publications do you recommend to keep apprised of business improvement districts?
So as we mentioned earlier, we're members of the International Downtown Association, which don't necessarily let the downtown part of that name throw you. They're more like the International Business Improvement District Association. Their website is downtown.org. They are a membership organization, but they do have a lot of really great resources on their website. We've been blown away by how great that community is and how willing they are to share information. They do a lot of research and they put out a lot of publications too. So,
yeah, in fact, I would say that if for James or anybody, any of the Summit Hill businesses that might be interested, membership is certainly worth its weight, and especially if you can swing it to go to one of their convenings at the conference. I'm not a fan of going to conferences, but this is a group of people. Their motto is that we all gather together for R&D, and that is to rip off and duplicate from one another. And then times where we will see another city doing a program that looks like it would be a good fit, we've reached out, and people will share their budgets, they'll share their toolkits, like whatever they have. They're not competitive with one another. They're not proprietary. It's a bunch of people who love urban spaces and who love sort of working to improve business vitality, and they want to help others do the same. So I can't recommend that group enough.
That's awesome.
Great. Well, Sherry, we have asked the questions in chat. Do you have any questions?
I think we had a lot of really intense questioning. I guess I would turn it back real quick. Is there any other resources that you would want to share outside of that particular organization? Emma, Joe?
There's the state house in the legislature has a research 4-page research piece about basically what the special services districts do and how they work. So that's if you want to get real nerdy on the topic, that's a good way to do it. And certainly, we'd love for you to follow us. We're still a new organization. We've been around for just barely 3 years now, and we're still learning a tremendous amount as we kind of get this thing up on its feet.
It's a resource that circles back to an earlier question regarding downtown. I will see if we can get it in the chat. If it's not able to, it's on our website. We do have a map that we've been keeping up to date for the past since March of last year of all the businesses that are open in downtown right now. So as you start, to plan your weekend and think about where you may want to go sit on a patio or get takeout, don't forget that downtown is also an option to do your business.
And there's all those new bike lanes downtown too. That's exciting. On a nice day.
What is your
go ahead.
What is your web address so I can put it in the chat?
stpdowntownalliance.org. And then one other thing that keeps coming up for us and that some business owners talked about in the community is things like startup costs, like helping other businesses with startup costs, or like helping minority-owned businesses buy their spaces or something like that. Is that something BIDs would ever be oriented around? Is that within the rules?
If that's what the business is paying into it, wanted to spend their money on, I don't see any reason that it couldn't be.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. And then any other questions in chat come in?
Nope.
I think we're good. Okay, cool. So something we do every show is honor our local nonprofit community by sharing organizations our listeners can contribute to as they're able. But in this case, we are having, again, 2 nonprofit representatives on the show, and they actually don't want donations per se. They would like something else. So Emma and Joe, why don't you share about that?
We would love it if you visited our website and signed up for our newsletter. As Joe mentioned, we've got a lot of really exciting things planned for downtown this summer as folks start to return, workers and visitors. A lot of great events and activations are going to be going on, and the best way to find out about those is through our newsletter.
Excellent. Really excited to get downtown again. And anything else you'd like to share, Joe?
I just echo that sentiment that we've said already, which is we can't wait to have you back. So we're having more and more restaurants reopen. I think there's probably a half dozen in the week ahead that are going to reopen their doors. And so when you get a chance to come downtown, we know course, you want to support your neighboring businesses, but if you feel like stretching your legs a little bit, we're looking forward to having you back downtown.
Awesome. Thanks. So we have come to the end of our another learning journey here at Summit Hills Community Thinkers. Please share this show on Facebook and like our page to keep up with more content. Monica, take us out.
So coming up, we have next Friday at noon. We'll talk about sustainability, climate solutions, and neighborhood plans with Russ Stark. He's the Chief Resilience Officer for the City of St. Paul. And then watch our Facebook page where we'll announce upcoming guests who will share about commercial finance, business cooperatives, and more.
Awesome. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.